The morning started like any other, coffee brewing, sunlight spilling through the kitchen blinds, and the low hum of Marissa scrolling on her phone by the sink. Then I asked one question, and it was like lighting a match in a room soaked with gasoline. "Hey, what's this hospital bill?" I said, holding up my phone. It came through our joint account, some clinic on Bridgeport Lane. She froze, just for a second, then slowly turned, forced a smile. "Oh, that?" she said too casually. "It's nothing." I frowned. "You sure?" It was a private women's clinic. "You okay?" Her smile dropped like a mask hitting the floor. "Logan, why are you monitoring every dollar I spend? Do you really have nothing better to do than audit my life?" I blinked. "Audit? Marissa, I'm not auditing you." I was worried. "If it's medical, you don't get to worry like that. Not when it comes with passive-aggressive interrogations." "I asked if you were okay," I said, my voice tightening. "I thought maybe you were sick or scared. I didn't accuse you of anything." "You didn't have to," she snapped. "Your tone says it all. You always come in with that calm and collected act, like you're above it all. But it's still control. You're still trying to catch me doing something, aren't you?" That stopped me. "What?" I said. "Catch you doing what?" She turned sharply, tossing her phone onto the counter like she couldn't stand to hold it. "God, Logan, you never say what you really mean. You just poke and prod until I'm the one who snaps, and then you get to act like the victim." My jaw clenched. "You're not hearing me. I'm not angry. I'm confused. I found a medical charge and asked a basic question. Why are you acting like I accused you of cheating?" Her expression flickered, just for a heartbeat. And then, coldness. "Maybe because you don't trust me," she said, folding her arms. "Maybe because you're always watching me." "I trust you," I said. "But right now, I don't recognize you. The way you're talking to me, it's like I'm the enemy." "You are," she muttered. I stepped back. "What did you just say?" She didn't answer, just grabbed her mug and moved toward the door like she was done. "No," I said firmly, stepping in her path. "You don't get to walk away from this. Tell me what's really going on." She stared at me, eyes sharp, lips pressed tight. And for the first time in 5 years of marriage, I saw it. Not frustration, not stress, resentment. "Let it go," she said. "If you love me, you'll drop it." I shook my head. "That's not how love works, Marissa. You don't drop a bomb in our finances and then demand silence." She scoffed. "So this is about money now?" "No," I said, voice rising. "It's about us. You're hiding something, and the way you just exploded over a simple question proves it." Silence stretched between us. She stepped around me, her hand trembling slightly as she picked up her keys. "Don't wait up," she said. And then she was gone. I wasn't shocked by the bill. I was shocked by her voice. That tone. Like she hated me. I manage a bar in downtown Columbus. It's not glamorous, but I love it. Late nights, regulars, stories. I come home just before sunrise most days. Marissa works mornings at a dental office, and we've always made the shifts work, passing each other like dancers in a routine choreographed over time. I thought we were good. Not flashy, but good. Now I wonder if I've been sleeping through a slow collapse. Because this, whatever just happened, wasn't nothing. It was the beginning of something coming undone. That night, I got home later than usual. I'd picked up an extra shift for a coworker who needed the night off. Anything to keep me distracted. The apartment was dark except for the soft glow from the hallway nightlight. I stepped out of my work boots and padded quietly through the living room. Marissa's purse was still on the entry table. Her coat was draped neatly over the banister, like she'd come home hours ago, like everything was normal. Except nothing was normal anymore. The house felt quiet in that heavy, unnatural way, like the kind of silence that waits for someone to break it. I found her upstairs, already in bed, buried under the covers like she wanted to disappear into them. She didn't flinch when I entered the room, just kept scrolling on her phone, the blue light casting a faint glow across her face. I changed in silence. Normally she'd ask how the night went, or joke about the bar stories I always had. But tonight, nothing. Just that cold, blue glow and her fingers tapping the screen like she was somewhere else entirely. I slipped under the covers beside her, careful, quiet. My hand brushed against hers, lightly at first. Then I traced my fingers along her arm, slow, familiar. She didn't move. After a moment, I leaned in, resting my hand on her waist. "Hey," I murmured, my voice low. "Can we just forget today? Just for tonight?" Still nothing. Then a breath, sharp and annoyed. and she turned away, pulling the blanket higher over her shoulder. Logan, I have a headache. That was it. 5 words. 5 ice-cold, unbending words. I froze. Not because she said no. No man expects yes every time. But because of how she said it. No warmth. No sigh of exhaustion. No apology. Just that distant, clipped voice. Like I was some stranger who'd rolled too close in her sleep. It wasn't rejection. It was disconnection. And that's what hollowed me out. I rolled onto my back and stared at the ceiling. The fan spun slowly above, shadows flickering across the room. She was inches away from me, but I'd never felt farther from her. Can you imagine that? Lying in the same bed you've shared for years, and suddenly feeling like you're trespassing? It wasn't just that she didn't want me. It was that she didn't see me. I stayed still, listening to her breathing even out as she fell asleep. Or pretended to. I wasn't sure which. I wanted to believe she was tired, stressed, that this would blow over. But deep down, I knew better. Something had cracked this morning. And tonight, I saw the fracture widen. This wasn't about a bill anymore. This was something bigger. Something unspoken. And now, it was living in our bed with us. I tried to close my eyes, to quiet the thoughts, but they kept echoing back. Her tone, her distance, her anger. I'd never been perfect. But I loved her. I tried. God knows I tried. And tonight, for the first time, I wondered if love was enough. Because if she could turn away from me so easily, what else had she turned toward? I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I just lay there, heart thudding, mind racing, waiting for the sun to come up and answer a question I was too afraid to ask out loud. The morning light bled slowly through the kitchen blinds, golden and warm, completely at odds with the chill that had settled between us. I was up early. Couldn't sleep. I'd tossed all night, my thoughts looping endlessly, like a skipping record. Now, I stood barefoot at the stove, frying 2 eggs out of habit. Our morning ritual. Or it used to be. I didn't expect conversation. Honestly, I wasn't even sure I wanted it. But something inside me refused to let the silence stretch a minute longer. I plated the eggs, buttered 2 pieces of toast, and sat at the table alone. No music. No news. Just the clinking of my fork and knife echoing too loudly against ceramic. Marissa finally appeared, already dressed for work, hair pulled back, makeup sharp. Her heels clicked across the floor with the same precision she used when avoiding eye contact. She opened the fridge, pulled out an orange juice, and poured herself a glass. Still no hello. She moved around the kitchen like I wasn't there. Then it happened, the clink. My knife tapped the edge of my plate just a little too loud, too sharp. I wasn't trying to be obnoxious, but it was enough. She spun around. Do you have to eat like that? I blinked. Like what? Like you're building something. All that scraping and banging. It's 7 in the morning, Logan. I stared at her, toast halfway to my mouth. It's breakfast. She folded her arms, leaning against the counter. It's inconsiderate. You know I'm sensitive to sound. I set my fork down slowly, deliberately. You mean since last night? She rolled her eyes. I'm not doing this with you again. No, I said, standing now. Calm. Even. I don't think you've done anything with me in a while. Her expression flickered. Just for a second. What's that supposed to mean? You're angry, I said. But not at the toast. Not at the fork. You're lashing out at me like I did something. But you won't say what it is. She shook her head, laughing bitterly. You're reading too much into everything. I stepped closer, voice still quiet. I'm not the one hiding things. That hit. I saw it. Her lips parted like she had something to say, but nothing came out. I pressed on. If you don't want to talk, fine. If you're tired or stressed, okay. But don't treat me like I'm some stranger who barged into your life and made you miserable. Logan, no, I cut in. You're angry at the wrong man. And if you don't tell me what's going on, then I'll stop waiting for answers. Silence. A long, long silence. For the first time, she looked caught. Not furious. Not defensive. Just paused. Then she grabbed her purse from the chair, fingers trembling slightly, and turned for the stairs. I didn't follow. I just watched her go, heels clicking up each step, fading one by one. The kitchen, once our safe space, now felt like a waiting room for a diagnosis neither of us wanted to hear. And in that silence, something shifted. I'd always try to protect our peace, bend to her moods, make excuses for her coldness. But today I'd drawn a line. And she didn't cross it. The late-night crowd had finally thinned. The jukebox was winding down, humming out the last few notes of a tired Springsteen track. I wiped the bar down slowly, dragging a rag across the glossy wood out of habit more than need. My hands were moving, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. The kind of day I'd had. You don't shake it off with a good playlist and a well-poured IPA. The door jingled once more before I could flip the sign. Marcus walked in, same as he did most Thursdays. Old friend. Same high school, same beat-up sense of humor. He'd stayed in town like I had. Married. 2 kids. Ran a contracting business. Solid guy. He slid onto the stool closest to the register, tapped twice, and gave me a tired smile. Rough night. I poured him a draft and gave him the kind of shrug that said, "You don't even know the half of it." He took a sip and watched me quietly. "You look like hell." "I feel like I'm sleepwalking through something," I said, leaning on the bar. "Like I'm watching my marriage fall apart from the outside." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That bad?" I nodded. "Something's changed with Marissa. It's like she's not in the room anymore, even when she's standing right there." He swirled the foam in his glass. "You think she's cheating?" The word hit harder than I expected. "I don't know, but something's off. She's jumpy, hostile, hiding things." I pulled out my phone, opened the banking app, showed him the charge. "Saw this a few days ago. Women's clinic." I asked her about it. She lost it. Called me controlling. Marcus stared at the screen, then slowly looked up. "Clinic like OBGYN, private. Not her usual spot." He shifted uncomfortably, running a hand over his stubble. "That's not good." "I didn't even accuse her of anything," I muttered. I asked if she was okay, and she bit my head off. Then she shut down. Cold. Shut me out. Marcus hesitated, then laughed under his breath, tight and awkward. "What?" He shook his head. "It's just, my wife got like that when she was pregnant. The mood swings. The silence. The weird, paranoid stuff." I froze. "When she was what?" Marcus looked like he immediately regretted saying it. "I didn't mean, I'm not saying Marissa is. Look, it was just a thought." But it was too late. That word, pregnant, hit me like a drop of ink in clear water. It colored everything. I leaned back slowly, my hands curling around the edge of the bar. "You think she's pregnant?" Marcus held up both hands. "I didn't say that. I'm just saying, if she is, maybe she's scared to tell you." I stared at him. "We've been trying for over 2 years. And she stopped mentioning it a while ago. I figured she gave up." He didn't speak, just sipped his beer, letting me unravel. "But if she is," I said quietly, "she didn't tell me. And that means something." Marcus nodded, his voice low. "It means you need to find out the truth." I nodded too, but there was no strength behind it. "Just wait." I closed the register and flicked off the overhead lights one by one, letting the room dim down to shadows. Outside, the October wind was kicking leaves down the sidewalk. I stood at the door, one hand on the frame. "Thanks for the beer," Marcus said, clapping my shoulder on the way out. I didn't answer, because now, my mind wasn't on the bar. It was on a quiet clinic across town, a woman I no longer recognized, and a possibility I wasn't ready to name. The next morning, I sat in my car outside the address from the statement, a low-bricked building nestled between a chiropractic office and a yoga studio. There was nothing suspicious about it. Nothing dramatic. Just a soft blue sign, Bridgeport Women's Health. It looked ordinary. Safe, even. I stared at that sign for a full 5 minutes before getting out of the car. I didn't have a plan. Just a rising, gnawing need for truth. Truth I couldn't seem to ask Marissa for anymore. The lobby smelled like lavender and lemon wipes. Too clean. Too quiet. A potted plant sat in the corner by the window, and a young woman behind the desk looked up and smiled politely. "Hi there. Can I help you?" I nodded, walking slowly to the counter. "Yeah, I'm trying to confirm a visit. My wife, Marissa Holt, might have been here last week." Her expression softened, but not in a comforting way. In a here we go again kind of way. "I'm really sorry, sir," she said gently. "But we can't release patient information without written consent, even to family." I smiled, tried to seem casual. "I get that. Totally. I'm not asking for anything sensitive. Just trying to confirm if she came in. That's it." She shook her head. "Even that qualifies as protected information. I wish I could help." I stood there a moment longer, hoping she might read something in my face, my confusion, my desperation, my exhaustion, and bend the rules, just slightly. But she didn't. "Right?" I said, backing away slowly. I understand. Take care, she offered, with that same smile. Kind, firm, unyielding. Outside, the cold slapped me in the face. A bitter wind swept through the parking lot, tugging at my coat like it wanted me gone. I leaned against the hood of my car, eyes scanning the glass doors of the clinic, wondering if she'd walked out of them alone, or if she'd been dropped off, or met someone inside. You can't unknow certain thoughts once they arrive, like the fact that if she was pregnant, there was no chance the child was mine. We tried. For 2 years. Every test, every calendar. I went to every appointment, every specialist. And somewhere in the mess of hope and disappointment, she stopped looking me in the eye when we talked about it. I pushed off the hood, got back in the car, sat with my hands gripping the wheel for longer than necessary. Part of me wanted to call her. Ask directly. Confront. But what would I even say? Hi, honey. I stalked your clinic bill and visited a place you never told me about. Can you fill in the blanks? No, that wasn't how this would go. So I tried another route. A buddy of mine, Derek, worked IT for one of the hospital networks in the area. We played poker twice a month for nearly 4 years. He owed me a favor or two. I shot him a message. Just as simple. Hey, think you could help me track a patient visit at Bridgeport Women's Health? Name's Marissa Holt. Just want to know the appointment date. Nothing more. 3 dots pulsed on the screen, then vanished. Then came the reply, Logan, man, I can't. That place is private. Not even part of our system. Totally separate. Sorry. Dead end. Of course. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. The truth was behind too many locked doors, and the woman holding the key refused to speak. I sat there, engine running, watching people come and go, women in coats and scarves, holding small folders or clutching their stomachs, all of them walking with intention. And I felt outside of it all, not just outside the clinic, outside my marriage, outside the answers, outside the life I thought I understood. I'd always believed truth had a way of surfacing. That time, patience and kindness would pull it into the light. But today I learned the truth can hide behind small smiles and laminated reception signs. And no matter how gently you knock, some doors just don't open. Not until they're forced to. When I pulled into the driveway that evening, the porch light was already on. That never used to happen. We were the kind of couple who left lights off, let darkness settle until one of us made it home. But tonight, the house was lit like someone was expecting company. The second I opened the door, I smelled roasted garlic and fresh rosemary. Music drifted from the living room, soft jazz, the kind Marissa only played during dinner parties or apology nights. And there she was, standing in the kitchen in one of those aprons she never wore. A navy blue one with little gold buttons tied neatly around her waist. Her hair curled softly, makeup on, eyes bright. She looked up, smiled. Hey, babe, she said, like nothing had ever been wrong. I froze at the threshold, coat still on. Hey, I replied carefully. I made dinner, she said cheerfully, turning back to the stove. Pasta with that sauce you like. And warm bread. Figured you'd be starving after your shift. I hung my coat, stepping in slow. The table was set. Napkins folded. Candles lit. It was too much. Too fast. I took a seat, watching her move around the kitchen with easy grace, humming under her breath. The same woman who, just days ago, had recoiled from me like I was a stranger. The same woman who exploded over toast. Now she was plating spaghetti like we were starring in a Hallmark commercial. You okay? I asked, not hiding the suspicion in my tone. She looked up, startled. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? I didn't answer. We ate in silence for a while. She filled it with little stories, something about a patient who brought in cupcakes, a coworker who quit on short notice. Nothing deep, all surface, but I was listening to what wasn't being said. No mention of the bill, the fights, the distance, nothing about last night, nothing about her sudden change of heart. After dinner, she poured 2 glasses of wine and led me upstairs like it was a regular Thursday, like we hadn't been Cold War enemies for a week. We undressed in the familiar hush of routine. She climbed into bed first, sliding close, fingers grazing my shoulder. Come here, she whispered. I didn't move. She kissed my neck lightly, slow and deliberate. Then her hand slid to my chest. I caught her wrist, gently, and pulled away. I'm tired, I said, voice soft. Long shift. She went still. Her hand paused in mid-motion before withdrawing. Oh, she said, too light, too breezy. Of course. Sorry. Just missed you. I turned onto my side, facing the wall. She curled behind me after a moment, resting her hand on my back. I didn't shrug it off, but I didn't reach for her either, because I wasn't falling for it. She wasn't reaching for me. She was reaching for control, for closeness she hadn't earned back. This wasn't connection. It was calibration, a test. She wanted to know how much of me she still owned. And tonight, I gave her nothing. Long after her breathing slowed, I stared into the dark, eyes wide, heart beating steady. This wasn't forgiveness. This wasn't healing. This was strategy. And now I knew. She wasn't going to tell me the truth. Not until she had no other choice. But I'd already made mine. From this moment forward, I wouldn't chase. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't break. Let her lie in peace. I'd find the truth in silence. I didn't want to bring anyone else into it. For days, I told myself this was between me and Marissa, our marriage, our secrets, our mess. But when someone hides that deep, you have to look where the light might still reach. So on Saturday afternoon, I drove across town to the little brick duplex where her sister lived. Elena Holt, Marissa's younger sister by 3 years. Kindergarten teacher. Bright smile. Soft eyes. Always had a way of diffusing tension, even in their worst family fights. She opened the door with a hesitant smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Logan. Hey, I said, hands in my coat pockets. Can I come in? She hesitated just long enough to answer without words, then stepped aside. The living room smelled like cinnamon and dryer sheets. A kid's movie was paused on the TV, and a basket of folded laundry sat on the couch. You want coffee or? No, I said gently. Just need to talk. She nodded and sat down on the edge of the armrest, arms crossed tightly across her chest like she was bracing herself for something she already knew was coming. Elena, I began carefully, I think you know something, and I think it's been eating at you. She didn't respond, just stared at her folded hands, the silence thickening. I'm not here to corner you, I said. I'm not angry, but I need the truth, because I'm not getting it anywhere else. Her lip trembled slightly, and then she exhaled, long and trembling. I told her not to drag it out, she whispered. I told her the longer she lied, the worse it would get. I felt my stomach drop. Elena, I said slowly, is Marissa pregnant? She nodded once, then looked up, eyes glassy. Yes. My throat closed. I sat back in the chair like I'd been punched. She didn't tell me, I said quietly. Not a word. She's scared, Logan. She's not scared, I said, jaw tightening. She's strategic. She's been picking fights, avoiding me, lying. Why would she do that, unless? Elena blinked slowly. I didn't finish the sentence. She doesn't know who the father is, Elena whispered, like the words themselves were fragile. Silence. I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean for it to come out like that. She told me a few weeks ago. Said it was an accident. A mistake. Some guy from work. It wasn't serious. I stared at the floor, heart pounding in my ears. Did she say when? No. Just that it happened once. She thought it would pass. Then she missed her period. My voice was steady, but distant, and she just decided to pretend everything was normal. She didn't know what to do. She said she wanted to keep the baby, but also didn't want to lose you. She thought she could. Wait it out. Wait it out. I echoed. Let me think it was mine. I told her it was wrong. Elena said quickly. I told her she couldn't lie about something like that. She was going to let me raise someone else's child. I murmured, more to myself than to her. Without even asking, I stood slowly. Elena, I said quietly, thank you. She looked at me with damp eyes. Are you going to leave her? I didn't answer. Not with words. I just nodded once, slow, solemn, and turned for the door. Please don't tell her I told you, she said suddenly. She'll never speak to me again. I paused. I won't, I said over my shoulder. You didn't betray her. She betrayed me. Outside, the wind bit at my face, sharp and bitter. I walked to my car with a stillness I hadn't felt in days. There was no need to shout anymore. No more arguing. No more begging for answers. Now I knew. And tomorrow, I'd take the final step. The next morning, I woke before the sun. The house was silent, the kind of silence that used to feel peaceful. Now it just felt empty. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee going cold in front of me, staring at nothing. Elena's words replayed like an echo I couldn't shut off. She doesn't know who the father is. I should have felt fury. Betrayal. something sharp enough to break through the numbness. But instead, I just felt still. It wasn't surprise. Somewhere deep down, I think I already knew. When you live with someone long enough, you start recognizing the sound of lies. Not by what they say, but by what they suddenly stop saying. By 9 a.m., I was parked outside another clinic, one I'd been to years ago when we were trying for a baby. The sign hadn't changed. Central Ohio Reproductive Health. I still remembered the doctor's name. Inside, the nurse smiled politely when I explained I needed a routine fertility check. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. It took less than an hour. Paperwork. A sample. A promise that the doctor would call within the day. When I left, the air felt cold enough to sting. I walked to my truck, sat behind the wheel, and stared through the windshield until my breath fogged the glass. By afternoon, the phone rang. Mr. Holt. The voice was clinical. Steady. We received your results. Okay. I have to inform you. Your sample shows non-viable sperm count. Essentially 0. I'm sorry, but conception through natural means isn't possible. I didn't move. Didn't even blink. How long has it been like that? Likely permanent, she said gently. Possibly congenital. It's not new. Right, I said quietly. Thank you. When I hung up, I sat there in the truck for a long time, staring at the steering wheel. No shock. No tears. Just a strange, clear quiet. All the confusion of the last week, every lie, every fight, every cold glance, lined up perfectly in that single moment. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't insecurity. It was truth, hiding in plain sight. And now I finally had proof. Not the kind you argue about. Not the kind that can be twisted or denied. The kind written in biology. I didn't drive home right away. I called my attorney instead, Daniel, an old friend who handled paperwork for the bar years ago. Dan, it's Logan. I need to draft divorce documents. Fast. And airtight. He didn't ask why. Just said, understood. When I hung up, I looked out across the parking lot at the people passing by. Families, couples, strangers all living their ordinary lives. And for the first time in days, I felt steady. Not angry. Not broken. Just done. Tomorrow, she'd find out. And when she did, she'd realize this time, she wasn't the one writing the ending. She made dessert. That's how I knew. We weren't dessert people. Not during the week, not after pasta. But there she was, standing in the kitchen with a plate of chocolate lava cake, 2 scoops of vanilla ice cream on the side, and that smile. That overly sweet, tight-lipped smile she hadn't worn in months. I played along, took the plate, thanked her, sat across from her at the table like everything was normal, like the last 2 weeks hadn't been a slow-motion implosion. She waited until I'd had a few bites before setting her fork down, carefully, like it mattered how the silver touched the ceramic. Logan, she said softly, we need to talk. I set my fork down, mirroring her tone. Okay. She looked nervous, eyes flicking from mine to her hands, then back again. I've been off lately. I know you've noticed. And I've been scared to tell you why, because I didn't know how you'd take it. But you deserve the truth. I nodded, not speaking, not rushing her. She exhaled slowly, almost like she was bracing for impact, then finally said it. I'm pregnant. She paused like it was a bomb she'd just dropped, waiting to see where the smoke would settle. I tilted my head slightly. Our baby. She smiled, small and trembling. Yes. A quiet beat passed. Then I smiled, too. That's interesting, I said, setting my napkin on the table. Marissa's smile faltered. What do you mean? I stood, walked over to the sideboard, and picked up a folded piece of paper I'd left there on purpose. I took my time. No anger. No drama. Just surgical precision. I placed the paper in front of her. My doctor confirmed something for me today. Turns out I'm sterile. Completely infertile. 0 count. Apparently, it's been that way my whole life. Her face drained of color. I leaned against the counter, arms folded. So unless you believe in immaculate conception, this is someone else's baby. Marissa didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then her lips parted. Logan, I already filed, I said calmly. Divorce papers are ready. My lawyer will be in touch this week. She blinked fast, like she was trying to wake up from a nightmare. Wait, what? No, that's not. This wasn't planned. I didn't mean. I held up a hand. Stop. She did. I'm not angry, I said. Not anymore. I was. But now? I'm just done. Tears welled instantly. She reached across the table like that would undo anything. It was one mistake, she whispered. One. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely, we weren't connecting, and Logan, we can still fix this. We can raise the baby together. Please don't do this. I shook my head once. That offer expired the day you lied. She collapsed into the chair, crying now, sobbing into her hands like the truth had only just become real to her. I didn't move. Didn't console. I'd done that before. For months, I tried to meet her halfway. But this wasn't halfway. This was a cliff, and she'd already jumped. And now she wanted me to follow her down. I was going to tell you, she gasped between sobs. I didn't know how. You were never going to tell me, I said. You were hoping I'd believe the lie, that I'd love the baby enough to forget biology. You were hoping you could erase what happened by turning me into the father. I didn't mean to hurt you, but you did. I cut in, voice still quiet. And the worst part is, it wasn't the affair. It was the story you built afterward. The trap, the performance, the way you looked me in the eye and handed me a lie like it was a gift. She cried harder. I walked to the living room, grabbed the folder from the side table. Inside, copies of the documents, divorce paperwork, my medical records, a clean, final truth. I placed them gently in front of her. I'll be staying at the studio apartment above the bar until things are finalized, I said. Please don't contact me unless it's through legal channels. She didn't respond. Couldn't. She was a heap of guilt and mascara at the kitchen table. I looked at her one last time, the woman I thought I'd build a life with. The woman who once whispered dreams into my ear on porch swings and Christmas mornings. Now she just looked small. I wanted to be a father, I said, voice almost breaking. But not like this. Then I walked out, closing the door behind me. No slamming. No yelling. Just a quiet end to a carefully constructed illusion. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. No towering judge's bench or dramatic lighting. Just wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, and the low murmur of lawyers flipping pages. Still, the weight of it pressed down hard. Like the air knew what was about to happen. Marissa sat across from me, her face pale and unreadable. She wore a navy blue blazer, hair tucked behind her ears. She looked like she was there for a job interview. But her hands were shaking in her lap. My attorney, Daniel, sat beside me, calm as ever. He'd gone through the paperwork a dozen times already, but he leaned over anyway and whispered, "You sure you're good?" I nodded once. Very. The hearing was short. Just asset division, final disclosures, and acknowledgement of the medical reports. All presented, all documented. No theatrics. No objections. Daniel handed over the sealed fertility evaluation. The judge flipped through it, eyes scanning line after line until she finally looked up. "Mr. Holt," she said, "this documentation clearly supports your claim of permanent infertility. You're certain you'd like to proceed without pursuing paternity testing?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, Your Honor. There's no need." Across the room, Marissa's attorney leaned toward her, whispering something urgent. She shook her head, then slowly stood. "I'd like to make a statement," she said softly. The judge allowed it. Marissa cleared her throat, voice trembling. I wasn't honest. I had a brief relationship outside of my marriage. I became pregnant, and I panicked. I didn't know who the father was, and I convinced myself maybe it could still be Logan's. But I knew the truth. I just couldn't face it." Her voice cracked. "He was a man I worked with. He doesn't know about the pregnancy. He moved out of state a month ago. I can't find him." The room went quiet. The kind of silence that follows a gunshot, not because of noise, but because of the impact. The judge nodded solemnly and proceeded. The ruling was swift. All marital assets protected, divorce granted, no legal responsibility for the unborn child placed on me. A clean break. Afterward, I walked outside alone. The air was brisk and dry, the trees shedding the last of their autumn leaves. I stood by the courthouse steps, watching them flutter to the ground like pieces of a story finally finished. She followed me out. "Logan," she called. I turned, waiting. Her eyes welled again. "You should know. I really thought I could fix this. I thought maybe if I told you it was yours, you'd stay?" I nodded slowly. "You weren't wrong. I might have." She swallowed hard. "But you didn't just cheat, Marissa," I said. "You tried to cast me as the villain in your cover story. And if I hadn't asked questions, I'd be raising a child that wasn't mine. Believing a lie for the rest of my life." She had no words. I looked her over one last time. The woman who once meant everything, now standing in a puddle of her own undoing. I wanted to believe in us, I said. But you turned that belief into a weapon. Then I walked down the steps, each one lighter than the last. The next morning, my sister dropped by unannounced. Julia had a key, but she knocked anyway, her way of asking permission before barging into my life. She stood in the doorway with a paper bag of pastries and that big sister look that meant I was about to get some perspective. I heard, she said, stepping inside. She set the bag down, made coffee like she used to in Dad's kitchen growing up. I let her. She needed the routine, and maybe I did too. You really went through with it? She asked finally, sipping from a chipped mug. I nodded. Papers signed. Judge stamped it yesterday. She exhaled through her nose. Logan, I get it. I do. But she's still carrying a life. That baby didn't lie to you. I looked at her for a long moment. That baby isn't mine. I know. But she knew it wasn't mine, I said evenly. And she looked me in the eye and told me it was. Not because she believed it, but because she thought I'd believe her. Julia fell quiet. She wanted a clean slate, I said. So she painted over me. For a while, the only sound was the low hum of the coffee maker and the occasional car passing outside. You were always the one who saw the good in people, Julia said quietly. I still do, I replied. But I also see what they choose when they think you won't find out. She nodded slowly, understanding dawning in her expression. Then she stood, came over, and hugged me, not with pity, but with pride. I hated her for what she did to you, she whispered. I don't, I said softly. I just won't carry it anymore. When she left, I stood at the window, watching the world carry on, kids racing bikes down the sidewalk, neighbors raking leaves into golden piles, dogs barking at squirrels like nothing ever changed. But something had changed. I had. And I finally understood something I never did before. Sometimes dignity doesn't come from standing your ground. It comes from knowing when to walk away, quietly, fully, and without looking back.